Hey, Paul here with another rant. This one's going to be a review of our e-bikes. Our love of e-bikes started when we visited Sydney and we hired line bikes quite often. They were pretty cool. They had throttles and you could weave in and out of people on the sidewalk through the CBD, and it was fantastic. So we really enjoyed that. And when we got back, we thought maybe we should look into buying some e-bikes for ourselves. Of course, in South Australia, you can't have throttle bikes, or you're not supposed to. Seems a lot of people do, but it is against the law, and I've heard that if you have a throttle bike and you have an accident, then you're not covered by any insurance kind of thing. So we had to look at hybrid or assisted pedaling bikes that you have to actually pedal to get the motor to kick in. So we looked at a few places. We were debating whether to get one of those little foldable bikes with the thick tyres or get full-size bikes, and after discussing it with a few people, we decided on the Pedal Falcon 3C from 99 Bikes. The guy there was pretty good, and we purchased a bike each, one for my wife and I, about 13 months ago. Of course, we got the usual accessories: the helmet, special riding gloves, decent locks, and also a dual bike car rack that had locks on it. I also learnt pretty quick that it's good to have some clear safety glasses of sorts in case you're riding at dusk and your sunnies is too dark for your sunnies. So I picked up a cheap pair from Bunnings, of course. And we also bought a couple of tiles and hid them in the lockable battery compartment on the bikes, thinking that if they ever did get stolen, we would be able to track them and get them back. Thankfully, we haven't had them stolen yet, but we don't really leave them at supermarkets. Most of our riding is just going out for a ride on a bike track nearby. We have also used the car rack and gone for some country rides, which was really nice, and also done a few beach rides along the footpath of the beach. We usually get about 3 rides. We do probably 12 to 15 k's per ride between having to recharge the battery, which does take a while. It's about 5 hours to recharge. Yeah, obviously if it was flat where we were riding, you'd get a lot longer ride before having to recharge. And the fastest I've got up to, which obviously is going downhill, is 51 kilometers per hour, which is kind of cool. Although I'm a little bit more wary these days because, about a week ago, the bolt on my seat snapped and my seat fell off. Luckily I didn't impale myself. So a little bit of a worry. I have replaced the bolt, but it does come loose now, so I carry an impact driver around with me to tighten it up whenever it gets too loose. But yeah, that's something you don't want to happen too often to you. So the cons of this Pedal Falcon bike: the display is fairly basic, and it doesn't connect to phone or Bluetooth or anything like that, so it does tell you the kilometers per hour that you're doing. Has an odometer obviously, and tells you what setting obviously you've got the motor on. And it didn't come in a large, so I probably would have fitted better on a large size, but I had to settle for the medium, which is a little uncomfortable to have sort of raised the handlebars as high as they can go, so, and the seat as far back, which is probably why the bolt snapped. But yeah, so it's a little bit small for me, but fine for my wife. And the original seats were just too narrow and very uncomfortable. But the pros, the battery does last, as I said, about 3 rides, and is still going quite well after 13 months. The settings for the motor, there's five settings, and they work quite well. So obviously going up the steep hills, you put in the top red assist. It does cut out after 25 kilometers per hour, so you're relying solely on pedaling after that. And the 9 gears work quite well. Also the brakes, the disc brakes, are very good. They do recommend having it serviced every 6 months or so, so we have serviced it twice. The first service was fine. The 12-month service, we did have to get replacement rear tyres because they had worn down and were quite bald, which we didn't actually notice. You don't look at that too often. And my wife had to get her rear brake pads changed. And apparently the chain needs replacing soon, otherwise it starts damaging the rear cogs on the bike. Otherwise, the maintenance that we do on a regular basis, you do need to wax or oil. There's a special lubricant to put on the chain. They said every 5th ride, so for us that works out to about every 60-70 k's. And at the 12-month service, the guy said the chain was quite adequately lubricated, so that seems to work. So yeah, as I said, do it every 60 to 70 k's, and also check your tyre pressure regularly. And whilst I did buy the special Fox riding gloves initially, after 12 months of Velcro on those started not sticking as well, so I've just gone for a cheap pair of utility gloves from Bunnings, and they seem to be doing just as good a job, so we'll see how long they last for. They're about 1/3 the price. Another thing I've noticed is that obviously there are other bike riders on the bike tracks that we go on. The fancy lycra wearing racing bike people seem very snobbish and very rarely acknowledge us, what would you call us, casual leisure riders. But other casual riders are quite friendly as you pass. So I can highly recommend getting an e-bike like the Pedal Falcon. The model was 3C. It's good for staying active, it's good for your mental health, and good quality time for couples, even though you may not be talking the whole way because sometimes one of you is far in front of the other. But yeah, we like to go to the local national park area, so once we get there we sit down and enjoy the views and have a chat, and then get back on and take the ride home. We've done 3,700 kilometers in the 13 months that we've had it, and I can honestly say it's one of the best purchases we've made. So if you're thinking about doing the same, there's a few tips I can give you, and I'm sure the people selling the bikes will say similar things, but a mid-drive motor is better than a hub motor, especially if you're riding in the hills. From what I understand, having a mid-drive motor around the pedals is that the gears that you're using come into play with the motor as well, so you get better torque and more efficiency. I would also recommend at least a 400 to 500 watt hour battery to get decent range, and I'm sure they all come with decent disc brakes and a good range of gears. And look for a wider seat if you have a sensitive backside, or yeah, you'll feel it after a while. And also getting the angle of the seat's important, so play around with it a little bit. I think they say to have it flat, but mine's tilted down slightly, not too much. And also the height of the seat is important. Make sure you can still touch the ground while you're sitting on it. And do be careful where you leave them and what sort of lock you got on them. Apparently they are a favourite for bike thieves. I have heard of people that are not that good at suburb, that they go around with grinders and just cut through your bike locks and take the bike. So if you have been thinking about getting an e-bike, I highly recommend it. I think it's great. So please like, subscribe and comment, and I'll see you in the next one.